Been running for a while. This is now I know what's going on. So you can stop your share screen and music.
Okay.
I'm still hearing the music. Hello, everybody. You've been listening to music from Brenzel and Tom Kruskel's track on the album Elixir from Rampant. It's wonderful to see you again, if only in 2 dimensions. As always, we're recording, except for the conversations in the breakout rooms. That's a reminder. Are we recording? Hope so. Now's a good time to start, actually. You can find where to watch the recordings in the reminder email that I sent out. And we'll have an email after all this is over, so you can make sure you have that recording link. Please take out your cell phones and have them ready to take pictures of the poll results or other slides that especially interest you. Thank you for coming. My name is Phil Coonley, a member of both the 350 Mass Metro North Node and of the Green Sanctuary Committee at the Winchester Unitarian Society, the groups which developed the seminar. These 2 organizations were joined in promoting the event by the 8 other organizations listed. The best change organizations are those anxious to collaborate in achieving a common goal. With that in mind, I wanted to alert all to an exceptional program that occurred yesterday over Zoom. Carbon Countdown 2022, Reaching Beyond the Choir. It was sponsored by Sustainable Middlesex and 25 co-sponsors. The lead speaker was Mass State Senator Mike Barrett. I think you have to, I think somebody needs to mute, might be the, anyway. It was sponsored by Sustainable Middlesex and had 25 co-sponsors. The lead speaker was Mass State Senator Mike Barrett, a chief architect of our Climate Act and chair of the Telecommunication, Utilities and Energy Committee. He was also at the climate conference in Glasgow. His insights into this 26th UN Climate Conference, 26th, were very illuminating, though discouraging. And he made it clear why action at the state level is so much more doable. The session also had 8 superb breakout rooms on different topics, and all of them were recorded. The link to the recording of the main speakers, plus each of the breakout rooms will be posted on the chat and also sent to all who registered for any of the 6 units in our Climate Solutions and Use seminar. Really a great program. You'll find something that interests you for sure. Back to the thank yous. The team, thanks to the individuals who organized this event or facilitated its production. Everyone involved has done more than they thought would be needed, and especially thanks to volunteer Dave Fonseca, who has to put up with me. Our goal is connection rather than perfection. And finally, the entire team offers special appreciations to our 9 fabulous speakers. Key takeaways from our first 7 speakers, Mark, Ken, Cor, Alan, Ingrid, and Roger, and John, were in the slides shown today preceding this event's start and will be in the recording of the final unit. Of special note for those who are with us in Unit 4 is an update on Roger Rosen, one of the 350 mass, one of the 350 mass speakers in Unit 4. He was one of the 6 core hunger strikers in the hunger tour by Climate Courage, designed to stop the Peabody Peaker plant. It ended after a week with a break the fast get together, and he reported all seemed to have survived with no lasting health consequences. Also importantly, the campaign was effective in bringing attention to the issue through their well-publicized demonstrations in multiple relevant towns, most with state and local officials who showed up. Some supporters showed solidarity through parallel food and fossil fuel fasts. There are now several towns reevaluating their now 5-year-old commitments to buy power from the plant, given their new understanding. I'm going to have our polls now. The first one is about age. There's only one answer, and it's anonymous. Why don't we have that poll, please? I'll go back. Poll number 2, it actually is in the list of them. My age today, I feel older. I don't get to vote. Well, you don't have to go very long on that. We can end that poll. We didn't get as many young folks as I hoped yet. Maybe they're going to be a little bit later. Who knows? And the next poll is a multi-answer poll. And it's number 7. And you could show that one. And it's about what programs you might want to go to in the future. And this is from multiple answers. And I think, I don't think I can manage it. Can people manage their own up and down slides, or does that have to be done by Dave? Because I want him to see the last choice for sure.
They'll be able to move it up and down.
Okay, great, thanks. I can't. Okay, we can about to show the poll, not quite. Whoops, some more kernels on the bottom. One up pop. Okay, let's show the poll, please. And got to take a picture of that. I can't see it all on my screen, but I got to take a picture anyway. Okay, so we can take that down and go to the next slide. Program goals. I'm looking at program goals now. And basically, they're the same. Provide evidence of realistic hope to turn the climate crisis around through the 80 to 100 benign solutions, which together also can have a huge net economic and social impact, positive impact. Number 2, show how you can accelerate these many necessary changes through individual and group action. And finally, to identify resources and groups that fit your skills, interests, and need to make a substantial difference. Our agenda today, by the way, I can't get rid of my poll, which is in the middle of my screen. How does that happen, folks? Am I the only one who has a poll in the middle of their screen?
Click close on the bottom.
Click close on the bottom. It's interesting. No, I can't do that. Anyway,
Or the top if you're on an iPad.
yeah. Doesn't show up here. Anyway, we've got today's agenda, and I hope you can all see it. I can't see it, but you get the idea. And we're going to move right ahead to the video, which is only about 14 minutes long, but really compelling. While I was talking about that, I hope some of you have purchased the Drawdown.
Okay,
book.
so in this final
It
unit,
is
we're
the
going
most
to talk about how we can
comprehensive
make
plan
this
ever
all
produced to
happen.
reverse global
We've
warming.
got solutions,
Compelling
but now
reading
we've got to put them out
with
into the
minimal
world.
jargon.
We've
Ninth
learned a lot
graders
along the way,
and,
though. First of all, it
graduate
is
students
not too
both
late to
will
stop
enjoy
climate
it.
change. Not at all. We have enough solutions right at
you
our
can get it
fingertips to
used,
solve the
Or you
problem.
can borrow it from a friend or the library, but it's really,
And remember,
it's
these
really
solutions
interesting.
are
reading.
good
What's
for
going
us.
on
They're going
here?
to make the world better. Analogy I kind of like to use is
Please
you go to
stop
the
talking. The
doctor,
video is running.
and you might learn about a
Phil, what's going on? Should I continue playing?
Yes.
year.
Dave, we can't see the video. We can only hear it.
No.
Why not? Why the hell aren't we doing this?
I know
Well, the
what I
first thing you
got.
have to
I gotta
remember
stop
when you
sharing
move forward
screen.
actually implementing these solutions is time is the most important variable. We've been wasting decades talking about climate change, but not doing enough to stop it. If we take the solutions we have now, let's not wait for any more technology or anything else. We start today. We can
You better be
still,
sharing your screen.
but if we wait because of politics, we wait because of obstructionism, we wait because we're waiting for the perfect new technology, we are going to lose.
So we have to start now. We need time, not tech and talk. That's what we need. And in Drawdown, we have a saying, now is better than new. We've got to get going with what we have today. So how do we deploy these solutions? How do we take them out into the world? The solutions are, again, kind of physical things. They're a technology, a practice that actually affect the atmosphere. They're things we need to have more of quickly. How do we make sure they get there? Well, we have things we call accelerators, things that move solutions into action. And they include a lot of different things. For example, we got to change the rules, effectively changing policy, like the laws we have or regulations or how we collect taxes and what do we tax, what do we incentivize, all of that kind of policy making, whether it's in Washington or at a federal capital or at a state level or at a city level, all of those policies are really, really important and can help us take solutions to scale more quickly. But we've also got to work with money and capital and investors and all this kind of stuff. We can pull capital out of the things destroying the planet, oil and gas and all that kind of thing, and out of bad forms of agriculture and destructive industries, and move capital into good things that are actually promoting climate solutions and maybe a regenerative economy, one that makes the world better. We've also got to reform the way businesses think about these things. We need to look beyond just right in front of our nose at quarterly profits. We've got to look at the long view, which knows that businesses have to take on climate change too. It's a really terrible business environment if the planet's going haywire. So if businesses take a longer perspective, they can actually incorporate climate solutions and better thinking into their daily practices. And businesses could be very helpful, but right now, largely they're not. We also do need more technology, partly to take what we already know how to do and make it cheaper and faster and move at scale quickly, as well as some fundamentally new things. But we can't wait for technology, we'll just fold it in as we go. So that'll be really important. And we do need behavior change. We absolutely do. You and I, at our household levels, at our communities, our schools, our places of worship, all of these places, we can make little changes that do add up. They're not enough to solve the problem, but without behavior change, things like how we eat, food waste, our energy conservation strategies, do require that as individuals and communities, we play sort of a role as well. So we need it all. Just like climate solutions, we need a lot of accelerators as well, from the policy making to individual behavior to moving money, inventing new things, and changing the rules of business. We need everything. But how's this going to play out over time? Well, we're going to be addressing climate change for a while now. It took us a good 100 years to get into this mess. It's going to take a couple decades to get out of it. It's just inevitable. So I think about climate solutions unfolding over, let's say, the next 3 decades. We got the 2020s to work on it, the 2030s, and the 2040s. How do we play it out over time? It's kind of like a big chess game. We now know all the pieces on the board. What are our opening moves, and what are the closing moves we need to win the game? Well, I think there will be kind of 3 waves of action that all begin today, but they unfold a little differently over time. The first wave of action might be, let's deploy the really cost-effective, low-hanging fruit, things we know how to do right now that save us money and are big wins today, and do them fast. Energy efficiency. It's crazy that we still have buildings that leak out half of the energy we pour into them. The fact that we throw away about 1/3 of the food in the world, that we still deforest beautiful tropical forests to grow a few more cows and soybeans. These are all things we can totally fix today if we put our minds to it. There's no reason we should be doing these things. Similarly, we need to demand the energy industry really tackle methane leaks. We're going to move off of natural gas completely. That'll take more time. But immediately, we can stop the leaks in natural gas pipelines, in natural gas wells, and flaring of oil rigs. Those are things we could stop today if we simply regulated that better. And we can also switch to renewables a lot faster than a lot of people thought. Even 5 years ago, I might not have said this, but today, renewables have gotten so cheap. They're now by far the cheapest source of electricity on the planet today. And if we can electrify our cars and our buildings more, they become a solution not only to electricity, but to the building and transportation emissions as well. Solar panels in particular have fallen in price so quickly, it's almost like computers. They're getting cheaper and faster and better, like everything. So iPhones and solar panels have that in common. And the cost of solar cells are so cheap now that solar and wind are now the cheapest ways to make electricity on the planet. This here shows a picture of how much money it costs to build 1 megawatt hour worth of electricity production. Solar and wind are now cheaper than basically gas could ever be, certainly cheaper than coal, and way cheaper than nuclear power. And they're falling in price every day. That's incredible. So there are a lot of things you could do right now very quickly that could have a big impact. Then the second wave, which we also start today, we're not waiting, but this one will take a little bit longer because it's about changing big infrastructure. We're going to have to reinvent a lot of our big systems, whether it's agriculture. We have hundreds of millions of farms across the planet. We're going to have to change them all, one by one by one. And we're going to have to do new kinds of farming that have fewer emissions, or farms that maybe even absorb some carbon dioxide as well. We've also got to retrofit almost all of the world's buildings. Sure, we can build new, like net zero buildings and green buildings and all that. That's great. But most of the buildings we'll see in the first half of the 21st century have already been built. And we've got hundreds of millions of those where we get to tear out a furnace and a boiler and a hot water heater, put in a heat pump and insulation and building automation systems and solar panels. That's going to create hundreds of millions of jobs and new opportunities. And these are jobs that can't be taken away by AI or robotics, and they can't be shipped overseas. This is a great opportunity for economic development too. We're going to do the same thing with transportation. Every car, every airplane, every truck, everything has to be retired and fast and replaced with more efficient and hopefully electrified vehicles that can emit no pollution, but still give us great mobility and even better transportation than we see today. And of course, over the same time period, we can deploy new technologies, but don't wait for them. But we will have to invent a few things along the way that can make things cheaper and faster and better, but also whole new ways of doing things. For example, in industry, we still are going to have to tackle the problems around cement. There's some interesting prototypes to this, but we've got a long way to go. We're going to have to find new replacements for refrigerants. away from these fluorinated gases like hydrofluorocarbons to ones that aren't super pollutants in climate change. And we also have to do things like making steel in ways that don't emit high amounts of carbon dioxide. These are all possible, but we got a little ways to go for that. Then we have things that I think are going to be pretty exciting, like how do we make jet fuel out of the air instead of out of oil? How do we have a drop-in replacement for aviation so we don't contribute to climate change when we fly? Or making air turn into plastics, so we're not using oil to make things we might need. We're actually using last year's pollution. These are all ideas that need a little more work and can be deployed over the next few decades. But what you see here is climate change is, yes, a huge problem, but I actually look at it a little differently and see it as a great opportunity to kind of reboot the planet. We have to reimagine everything, the way we make our energy systems work, electricity, transportation, buildings, the way we grow food and use what we grow and ship it around the world and what we eat and how we eat it, all of that. Everything has to be reinvented. That's great. That's an opportunity to rethink everything. As we fix our problems around climate change, we could also have an eye towards equity and justice, and maybe address some of our long-standing historical dilemmas there. We also could look for opportunities to grow new jobs as globalization has wiped out other jobs. We could also create healthier cities where people walk more, get more exercise, lead better lives, breathing cleaner air, and addressing some of our biggest public health concerns. So to me, addressing climate change isn't a bad thing. It's one of the biggest opportunities to build an incredible world we've ever seen. So what else do we need? I'm convinced we actually have the solutions and technologies at our fingertips to get going and solve this problem. We also know how to push them out into the world with policy, behavior, capital, and so on. But we're missing something. One of the things I think we're missing right now is a much better and bolder vision of leadership. We don't have that today, sadly, in most places. Today, a lot of our leaders are saying the future is going to be terrible. It's going to be dark, dismal, dystopian futures, and those people are to blame for it. We're causing people to be fearful and divisive and hate each other. We are now more divided in the United States, for example, than any time since the Civil War. And I don't even know why. We have to move away from that model of leadership if we want to be the best version of ourselves and solve one of our greatest civilization's problems. So what we need is a different kind of leadership that paints a picture of the future that we can join together in and build a better world. Martin Luther King, for example, didn't go around America saying, "I have a nightmare." He talked about a dream that even those who didn't agree with it at first knew in their bones was right and true and moral and just. He had a dream where measuring people on their character, not the color of their skin. And that dream was beautiful, and he invited all of us to join in and make that a reality. Now, he died for that dream, and we're still far from achieving it completely, but we're on that path, slowly but surely. What about climate change? What if we said to the world, solving climate change is one of the best ways to make a better world? And we invite all of you, conservatives, liberals, big city folks, small town people, to come together and build that better world. I think it would energize millions of people and bring together us around one of the greatest achievements we could ever have. So my ask of you is for you to step up and be a leader in your life, in your community. There are always people who look up to you, who ask you for help, and you have influence across your businesses where you work, your communities of faith, your schools, your neighborhoods. All of us can share and learn what we know and lead all of us into making a better world, one bit at a time. I hope at Project Drawdown we can be a resource to you along your leadership journey. Come to drawdown.org. We're going to have lots of resources about climate solutions and hopefully network people together so we can work together to build this bigger planet and solve these bigger problems. But we ask you to exercise your leadership. Don't abdicate your future. Don't abdicate your responsibility, and don't abdicate your leadership in making a better world. And remember I started this whole thing in saying the future is not written yet. Robert Henton Wilson once said the future is up for grabs, and it belongs to the people who accept the risk and the responsibility of consciously creating the future we want. So let's go out and build a future by design, a better future, not one by default. And that future is up to you and up to me and all of us. And I think we can make it a great one.
So you're going to end share screen. I'm going to start it. I hope I have this here going. Yes. Well, we're going to get in our breakout rooms and talk about what we just saw. And our guidelines are the same as always, trying to have both and thinking, realizing one truth isn't the only truth. So it pays to listen and try to understand the other person's truth. And try to know what other people have been saying so we can build on each other's ideas. We're going to be, what we do is the same thing, who we are, why we're here today, and then what stood out for us in the video and why. And you can be looking at it from a group perspective and or an individual perspective. Maybe about 10 minutes long, and as soon as you'll get a warning about halfway through and with 60 seconds to go. And when you come out, please put your thought succinctly in the chat so we can all get a sense of what the other guy thought. So without further to do, they're going to be small breakout rooms, about 4 each. So as soon as you see an invite, please join the room.
I'm not getting anything.
Are people getting invites?
They should, everybody should be in their room now.
Okay. I didn't get in again. That's all right.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm not in either, but
Oh, here. Did we get the did you get the
I got
two
the
young
message
women?
out.
Emily and Ann in?
Let's see.
I mean, Emily and Sharlow? Yeah.
Yes, they're in
Good.
room 4 with Alan Field and actually with Marilyn. If you want to go over to Marilyn's computer, you could sit in.
So we don't think Carol and Diane and Kay wanted to go?
I don't know. What's the
Okay.
question?
They're showing up as in the general room. That's why I'm asking.
I don't know where that is. I don't see that. Oh, I see. Carolyn and me, my phone.
Okay, we got another one just joined. So they can be people away from their screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Now my slides are frozen where they are. There's nothing I can do now. That makes sense, right?
Do you want to remove the slides from the screen?
No, I'm gonna play two more, but I just want to,
Okay.
it doesn't seem to go forward or, oh, it does go forward and back. Great, thanks.
Yep.
Great, thanks. And then as soon as I've introduced, you're gonna do the video. Ooh.
Actually, Phil,
before I
on
introduce-
my screen where I have breakout rooms, there are join buttons where you can click on which room you want to join.
Ah,
So I
right.
assume
I think
you
I'll,
click on the
I think I'll,
breakout
I
room.
don't think I'll interrupt anybody now, but
Okay.
thank you. I didn't realize that.
I didn't notice that until now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what we got in here for chat. Great, you got that right. It's probably the vested interest, do a good job at making sure we all hear it, is that, wow, it would take tremendous sacrifice and be a pretty dismal path if we try to rush into this, anything that has to do with lessening our dependence on fossil fuels. Very, very discouraging how widespread that view is. But I like all the positive things here. We're going to end now and talk about, hear from our speakers. Before I introduce them, we'll listen to some music that will sort of introduce them too. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Can't. I am frozen. I have no ability.
Phil, if you're really stuck, you could, leave the meeting and come back in.
I think that's what I'll have to do.
If Phil leaves, we all have to leave. I mean, we're all kicked out. Assuming
no, I
Phil
don't
is
think-
closed.
No, I'm all right now. Here we go.
What
Yep.
you could do,
So basically, we're going to go to the music video. I'm going to stop sharing, and it's all yours, Dave.
Okay, Phil, I've noticed I don't have the ability to make anybody co-host, so Why don't
I
you
do.
look up
I will
Paul
do that.
Titus
Yep.
video?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Coming up.
We need to wake up. We need to wise up. We need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future. And we need to start right now. On the planet that has a problem, we've got to solve it, get involved and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now.
We don't need that, but I'm trying to find our speakers.
Climate justice now, gonna rise like water.
No thanks. I'm trying to find our speakers.
Here we are.
Here they are. Great. I found you. Whoops. I go back to you. Sharlow and family. Great. You are now co-hosts. Great. Thank you. So I'm going to introduce them. So I'm going to, before you share screen, I'm going to share screen once more. And Emily Hitchcock. At Methuen High School, she started an environmental club, and then she established the town's textile recycling program. At Smith College, she studied environmental science and Spanish and some other things, and policy, and also worked on its fossil fuel divestment campaign and in its botanic garden. After graduation, Emily conducted a marine conservation summer camp in Belize, was an intern at Longwood Gardens Botanical Garden in Pennsylvania, and an intern with the Native Plant Trust, previously New England Wildflower Society. She's going to tell you about her deep concern for the environment, but integrating the love of plants with worry about the climate change really helps you become a pretty proud Arnold Arboretum employee. So it's going to be fun to hear from her. And they want to be introduced together because they're going to be combining their presentation. Here's Sharlow. She majored in anthropology and education at Mount Holyoke College, and she's enthusiastically taught in 5 environmental education organizations, including at Mass Audubon's Drumlin Farm and the Ecology School in Maine. She now works all over Boston and Cambridge for an organization called E-Inc., Environmental Science Learning and Action Center. So let's hear, I'm going to stop sharing so they can. Let's hear from Sharlow and Emily. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for those introductions. We are now working on sharing our screen.
Oh, and folks, please put in your questions you have for them in the chat addressed to me, and I'll make sure they get them and that we're going to save some time for they can answer them. Thank you.
Yes, thanks so much, Phil, and welcome to everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We're very excited to tell you our stories today. As he said, my name is Emily Hitchcock. I'm Emily here in the purple, and this is Sharlow. And today we're going to talk to you a bit about our climate-related work and inside and outside of professional settings. And then at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about how young people can get involved and other people can support and get involved, people of all ages as well. So I'll start with my piece. I just wanted to start by saying that as a young person still figuring out how to function in the world as an adult, sometimes, maybe this is something that everybody relates to, but I have sometimes found it hard to find time for everything that is important to me, including climate action work. So one solution that I have found is to try to choose, as I'm early on in my career and have flexibility with where I live, I'm especially able to choose jobs and workplaces where the climate issues are central in that organization. So I'm going to tell you about a few of those. So I'm a teacher and I've taught about all sorts of things, but environmental education has always been my favorite type of teaching. I feel like you can always know that you're teaching your students something that matters. And also it tends to be very hands-on and exploratory and often outdoors. Some of the best teachers that I've known have been environmental educators, and it's the field of teaching where I've learned the most and grown the most as a teacher. Also, I feel like I'm always doing at least a small part in the environmental movement by helping to raise the next generation of people who care about the environment. So when I was doing my student teaching in college, I was in a second grade classroom, and my head teacher for Earth Day, she planned a flip book from online about recycling for the kids to color in. And I felt like I wanted them to do some learning for Earth Day that gave them kind of a bigger picture of environmental problems instead of just focusing on coloring about recycling. So I asked if I could teach the kids about climate change. And my head teacher was at first kind of resistant. She said the sorts of things that people say a lot of the time about teaching kids about climate change, which is like, oh, they won't understand, it's going to be too complicated for them, or it's too sad for them, it's too depressing. And she was resistant, but I insisted, and I found a cool article about some students in another part of the world who had done some climate action, and I tried to give them a visual and kind of try and explain the greenhouse effect to them through drawing and explanation in terms that they could understand. So that was the first time that I taught about climate change, but I've done it a lot since. Including I worked at, some of you guys might be familiar with the Drumlin Farm in Lincoln, Mass. I worked at their camp in the summer of 2019, and I got to be involved in creating some new climate change curriculum while I was there, which was really cool. We really focused on teaching them that essential part of the problem is that there's these mostly men in power who have a lot of money and power in government positions, and they want to keep things the way that they are so that they don't lose that money and power. And later on in the lesson, we were asking students for examples of natural disasters, and one of the young campers said Donald Trump as an example of a natural disaster. And I thought that was funny and kind of showed that they were getting the point, I think. If you are, I guess we learned in the poll that we don't have that many young people on the call today, but if you are a young person, or if you know any young adults looking for a climate conscious job for the summer, or they have part-time work during the school year, I would recommend looking for a Mass Audubon near you. There's many around the Boston area. I've listed some here, but it's a really great climate conscious workplace. And also, if you don't identify as a young person, one of the things that I loved about working there is that it's very intergenerational. So my teaching team had someone in their 20s, someone in their 30s, and then also a woman who was in her 50s or 60s who was a science teacher during the year. So it's a very multi-generational workplace if you're ever looking for a climate conscious organization to get involved with. And then after, another place I've worked at is the ecology school, which is in Maine. But while I was there, I taught students from all around New England about the interconnectedness of the ecosystems around them. They came to stay there, some of them we went to their schools, and it was my favorite job I've ever had. When I worked there, it was temporarily housed in a golf resort, but now they have a really incredible new home on an old farm in Maine. And I'm just going to read a little bit about this. Their new campus is part of the Living Community Challenge, a tool to create symbiotic relations between people and all aspects of the built environment. So they're one of the first organizations in the world to submit a master plan for the Living Community Challenge. And as part of that, 2 of their buildings are Living Building Challenge buildings, which you guys might have heard about. And you can read more about this on their website. They have many cool features, including like passive solar heating and water saving plumbing. And I also was reminded of it from that Drawdown video we just watched, because they not only did they build these cool new living buildings, but they also converted the old farmhouse that was already there. He was talking about having to convert old buildings. They converted their old farmhouse to make it more efficient as well. This is obviously an organization in Maine, but you can go visit, and they give tours so you can learn about the efficiency of their campus, and they have other weekend events where you can go and stay and experience. So that's a really cool organization. Or if you are a young person or know a young person who's looking for a change in scenery, they always have job openings, and they have seasonal ones, so you can go work there temporarily as well. So that's another really cool organization. Now I work for, as Phil mentioned, an organization called E-Ink. My coworkers and I teach about earth and climate science and sustainability at schools and community centers all around Boston and Cambridge. We teach about the science and wonder of the rainforest, ocean, and city ecosystem. And then we teach about how human behavior and climate change are affecting that ecosystem, and how that in turn affects the delicate balance that we rely on to survive. So we help our students take action on what they are learning and think about how they can spread awareness about environmental issues. Several of the curriculums that I teach start out by teaching the students about an ecosystem or a habitat. So for example, I'm currently teaching at several sites our ocean curriculum, where the kids learn about the ocean, how it was formed originally through the eruption of volcanoes and ice meteors from space. So here is some of my students showing me their volcano drawings. Thought I'd share some of these. And then we go on to talk about the layers of the ocean. Here's one of my students showing, he had to tape a second piece of paper on to show the great depth of the Mariana Trench when we were learning about ocean layers. He's very proud of his work here. So then once the students have learned about and been fully immersed in the wonder of that ecosystem, we talk about how human activity is affecting that ecosystem. So in the rainforest curriculum, we have an activity where they pretend to be monkeys getting food in the canopy of the rainforest. They have to stay on this blue tape. And then we talk about deforestation, and I take away some of the branches, and they see how the deforestation done by humans makes it harder for animals to get food in their ecosystem. And then we go on to talk about how not only do the trees in the rainforest serve as pathways and homes for the rainforest animals, they also serve as carbon sinks to take the carbon out of the atmosphere, carbon dioxide, and maintain a balance in the atmosphere with our human activity of putting it into the atmosphere. So I explained the greenhouse effect with a tag game in which the kids are trying to bounce heat energy from the sun off of the earth and out into space, but there's a tagger who is the carbon dioxide and tags them and traps them in the atmosphere. And then the number of taggers increases, and they see how as the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere increases, the earth gets warmed as the heat is trapped from the sun. Many students said that this was their favorite lesson, and one even said it inspired him to write about the greenhouse effect in the little newspaper that he has with his family. So students are really learning these concepts. With my older students, we talked about acids and bases, and by using some purple cabbage water as a pH indicator to see how acidic different household substances were. It changes color based on when you add the different substances based on their acidity. And I used that to talk to them about how the ocean is being ocean acidification is happening as the CO2 that we are producing dissolves in the ocean and as the ocean temperature warms. And we talk about the effect that this acidification and the rising ocean temperatures has on the ocean ecosystems and on people's lives as well. And the last example from my teaching with this current organization is that we talked about sea level rise last week, and they had to build homes and figure out ways to protect their homes in a way that when I poured more water into these paint trays, as you can see, the homes wouldn't get overflowed with water. And it was really cool. After they'd finished, I told them that, hey guys, you really use strategies that people actually use in coastal communities around the world, such as building seawalls or retreating them far from the water line or elevating the houses. So they were proud to hear that they had used real strategies. If you would like to get involved with e-ink, I guess these are actually for people of all ages, you can help out with our summer camp, reach out about getting us to teach a program in your community, or volunteer to help with our social media and fundraising. If you don't have much time but would like to support the organization, you can shop our online store for if you have any kids in your life who like science toys or books or games. All of the proceeds from the store go to support our educational programs. We're also having a fundraising film festival on April 30th, a Saturday evening, to raise money for our educational programs. And to stay updated on all of these, and our camp is going to be, if you have, again, kids in your life you want to send to camp in the summer, it's going to be really cool. And if you want to stay updated, information about all of these will continue to be posted on our Facebook if you want to follow the e-ink Facebook, or if you just have more questions, this is an email that you can email me at about learning more about e-ink, the organization, or ways to get involved. You can take a picture of that, but I will move on now because my piece here has been very education focused, and I do believe that education is a really important part of the climate movement. I thought I would ask some questions to you guys, if the chat is still enabled, I hope it is, about, it seems to be, about that are related to climate education. So the first, and I'll ask the question and then you guys can just respond in the chat and I'll read out some of the responses. The first question is, oops, oh, sorry. The first question is, when and how did you first learn about climate change? So try and think back, if you can, to a time before you even really knew about climate change, and what was that first time that you learned about it? If you can think back to that, I'm curious to hear. Are people able to? Oh, some people are doing it. A lecture by Bill McKibben. Oh, in 2013. That's cool. Yeah, Bill McKibben. I've heard that from other people too. A movie, An Inconvenient Truth. Yeah. Al Gore. Whoa, a TV show in 1956. Al Gore. Cool. The first Earth Day. Wait, when was I actually forgot. When was the first Earth Day? 70. Oh my gosh, cool. You have a copy of the video. Oh, seeing a diminished glacier.
Yeah.
Oh, my parents and teacher.
Yeah, 71, I was gonna say.
Certain foods like shrimp wouldn't be available in the future because of overfishing and pollution. Silent Spring. I feel like that definitely counts.
That's a big one.
A classic. Okay, cool. We will move on to the next question, which is and maybe this is kind of part of that question, but what made you care about it and want to get involved? Like, did you get involved right away after that first learning moment, or what was it that finally made you be like, okay, I have to take action on this? That's the second question. Okay, fires, air pollution. So seeing the impacts on actual people, maybe. Yeah, grandchildren. Loss of species. Yeah, love of nature and animals. Yeah, it's funny. Loss of species is something that we use, I feel like, to get people's emotions, but it's also, I'm trying to teach my kids that not only is it sad to think about a species being gone forever, but it actually has such a big impact on the whole ecosystem, because then their predators won't have anything to eat, and then it has far-reaching impacts. So it's not just about the sadness of the species, although that is also sad. Appreciation of the outdoors, that I think is the mission of a lot of these organizations that I work at, is that even if we're not teaching the kids the minute science of the climate yet, we are teaching them to love the outdoors. And then, yeah, cool. Maybe this is kind of repetitive. How did you feel when you first, and this can, I guess, just be a one-word answer. When you first learned about it, these moments that you guys are talking about, did you feel hopeless or empowered? Or something else? Or something else, yeah, I guess. It depends on how it's taught to you. Yeah, empowered, alarmed, yeah, that's true. Cool. Nauseous, that's relatable. Alarmed but optimistic. Determined, that's a good one. Okay. Oops, sorry. The last question is, who have you taught about climate change? If anyone. Members of my church. Used to be more hopeful. Oh, sorry. Family and friends. Cool. All right. Anyone who is willing to listen, great. My spouse, my faith community, children and friends, grandchildren. Okay, cool, great. So we will move on to Emily's piece now. Thank you guys for your, 4th and 5th graders. I had those last year in my classroom. Trail walks.
You're welcome to continue typing in for others to read as we continue, but we'll move on, I suppose. Yeah.
All right, here we are on to Emily's piece. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Sharlow. So now I'm going to tell a bit about my story as a climate activist. So though I did do, as Phil mentioned, some environmental work in high school, and that was definitely a formative time for me on this issue, I would say that the most significant beginning of my journey as a climate activist was when I began school at Smith College and joined the fossil fuel divestment campaign there in 2015.
which was my first year of college. And I did have a concern for the environment already, so they must have hooked me through that. I was looking for ways to get involved, but wasn't really that aware of the Divest movement yet. So though many of you probably know already, the goal of the Divest campaign was to reveal the evil of the fossil fuel industry and pressure the college to remove its financial investments from fossil fuel related companies in order to send a message about their values, the college's values. Which is a way of moving capital, as we just discussed in the Drawdown video. One of the 5 accelerators that he mentioned was moving capital, moving investments. And so that's the mission of the Divest movement. And through this campaign, I really learned so much about the crucial role of money in general and money holders, and how entrenched they are in the political process surrounding climate change, and how central money holders are in the climate crisis. And perhaps most importantly, my work with the Divest campaign taught me about the disproportionate effect of climate change is already having on disadvantaged communities, and gave me a very people-centric, climate justice-centric lens to view the rest of my climate work going forward. So that was kind of a new addition from this movement. And when I think back to this time, I can really viscerally recall the feeling I would have when I walked out of a Divest meeting. We would have them in the evenings, and so I was usually probably pretty exhausted and maybe had several more hours of homework to do, as were we all. But we would, I just remember the feeling that I would have in my stomach, kind of walking out of the meeting, and feeling so empowered by and hyped and energized by the collective passion and power of my fellow Smith peers and Divest peers, as we had been discussing ways that we were going to get the college to listen to us and get our fellow students to understand the severity of climate justice issues. That was a visceral feeling I had. So as a Smith student, I also began to build connections with the larger climate activism network in the Pioneer Valley, which was really, it was really empowering to feel like I was part of a larger community, and to start to attend more protests and marches to oppose pipelines and other fossil fuel infrastructure. So here I am in March of 2016. Which was the spring of my first year, marching with some Divest friends to oppose the Kinder Morgan pipeline that was proposed to pass through Western Mass, and which was successfully opposed by lots of consumer opposition. Very exciting. And through my work with Smith Divest, I was introduced to the work of the Sunrise Movement, a youth-led movement to stop climate change and create millions of good-paying jobs in the process. And so during my winter finals period, my senior year at Smith, I traveled with one other member, Maeve, here of Divest, and Sunrisers from throughout New England on a harrowing long bus journey down to DC to stand in the halls of Congress with 1,000 other young people, mostly Sunrisers, to pressure more elected officials to sign on to the Green New Deal. And the energy of this action and the vision of Sunrise in general and the Green New Deal really gave me a new level of hope and invigoration to get more involved with climate activism. And so there we are, down in DC. And so here we are at another Sunrise action in February of 2019, lots of singing and chanting with fellow Smith Divesters and other members of the Sunrise movement and other local climate activists of all ages outside of the office of Congressman Richard Neal in Springfield, demanding that he sign on to the Green New Deal. I continue to participate in Sunrise actions on and off going forward, largely a lot of phone banking for political candidates that support the Green New Deal, which has been a big focus of Sunrise recently. And Sharlow and I together attended the Sunrise School Zoom training series together in the very beginning of quarantine in March of 2020. And that was a really good way to spend our time cooped up inside.
So throughout college, I was also discovering my desire to work in the field of public horticulture. I was excited about the botanic garden setting as a space where I could do the type of work that I love best, which is hands-on work outside, but for organizations and institutions that were having really important mission-defining conversations about conservation, climate change, and social justice. When people were talking about the motivators that motivate them when thinking about climate change, the things that motivate them, thinking about, and Sharlow mentioned too, love of nature and the outdoors. I was seeing my work in the public. I've been seeing my work, my ongoing work in entering the field of public horticulture as tying into that as one of the big ways to really hook people on thinking about conservation and climate change, is just really fostering that love, appreciation for plants in the natural world. And so, yeah, I actively involved myself in climate conversations at the Smith Botanic Garden, where I worked in college, and then at Longwood Gardens down in Pennsylvania, where I interned after college. And my most recent internship was with the Native Plant Trust, who truly directly has conservation and climate change at the center of their mission. Previously called, you may know it as the New England Wildflower Society. They recently changed their name. And one example, a core of their work recently is that recently in collaboration, it was a 2-year process with collaboration with the Nature Conservancy. They just put out an extensive plant diversity report, which assesses and protects New England plant diversity in the face of climate change. So it's really at the core of their mission, acknowledging that the definition of native plants is literally changing as the climate changes. So very central to the mission. In all the conversations that were happening. That was a really impactful internship for me. And here I am, I got to spend a lot of time collecting seed out really in the environment. That was very important for me. Here I am, same organization, collecting from the Lawn Alternatives Bed, collecting seeds from the Lawn Alternatives Bed, which encourages and educates consumers of the native plant nursery on how to work towards replacing their resource consumptive lawns being one of the most resource consumptive things that we have in our society, I'd say, with native alternatives. So here's an example of saying, hey everyone, you can have these native plants in your yard, and it will require less resources and be better for the environment. So there I am, continuing that work. So just one question from me, you can type it into the chat again. I think sort of a theme was what types of environments made me feel motivated and invigorated to stay in this, to continue in this movement and made me want to fight harder. So a question for everyone is, what kinds of settings or elements of a setting make you feel energized and motivated to take action? So as I said, that feeling of being in the setting with all of my peers, getting really excited, planning events together, that just collective feeling, brainstorming together, that's something that really gets me going. So just to pose that question to everybody, if you want to type it into the chat. Yeah.
Lobbying Congress. Woo!
Yeah.
Being in nature.
Direct actions. Yes, I totally agree with that too.
Mm-hmm.
Hiking, again, there's that love of nature again.
Mm-hmm.
Running, attending rallies, planning educational events. Yes, I agree. Working in community.
Very important.
Being part of groups. I agree. A regular relationship, building communities around climate action for me is really important. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
So for the last part of our presentation, we're just going to talk a little bit about some ways to get involved, sort of young people leaning, but there are ways that everybody could get involved. And again, these might be things that you guys already know about, but just in case you don't, not knowing who exactly was going to be here today, if you already know about these things, then let them serve as a reminder if you haven't written them in your calendar already. So on Friday, I attended the climate rally. I don't know if any of the rest of you were there, but on the Common in front of the State House, organized by Boston Climate Action Network, which excitingly, I've just moved into an apartment in Jamaica Plain with the director, the main advocacy director of that organization. I'm very excited to be living with another climate activist. And she was one of the instrumental in organizing this event. So it was organized by Boston Climate Action Network and several other organizations. And I felt very inspired to be in this space so soon. Just a few days after moving to Boston, I said, yeah, here I go. I'm getting into this climate community. So that was exciting for me. And one of the major missions of the rally was to spread the word about the effort to save Crane Ledge Woods in South Boston area, which is the largest forested area in the city of Boston and which is being currently threatened by a development project. So this is a project that people of all ages could support. Very important to maintain this forested area for purposes of climate sequestration and also, carbon sequestration and also getting out into the natural world as we've been talking about. So if you go, if you search Save Crane Ledge Woods or savecraneledgewoods.org, there is a petition that you can sign on there. You can get yard signs and you can also sign up to hear about when future actions are. I think there was just an action yesterday. So if actions are your way to go, that's something to go to. So yeah, we're just because that is one of the most energizing ways for people of all ages to get involved. We're going to talk about a few more actions that you can attend or pass on to others in your life as well. So this was an event specifically for youth that they announced, that was being announced at the rally on Friday. And it seems like they're still refining some of the details, but if you are a young person or you know any young people that might be interested in this and getting more involved, feel free to take a picture of this slide. This is really, I'm not positive, but I think it's at Boston Latin School. It might be geared towards high school aged people, but I'm not positive about that. And I was having a bit of trouble finding out more information online, but it does say registration opens May 6th. So perhaps at this link, there will be more information at that time. But it looked and sounded just like the type of thing that I did attend in high school and would have really inspired me at that time. Because I do feel like at that time I felt somewhat isolated from others in the climate world. Not a lot of my peers in high school were that excited about climate stuff yet. So going to an environment like this could potentially be very inspiring. And another upcoming event to attend is the Extinction Rebellion Earth Day Action Freedom from Fossil Fuels Tour at 3:30 on Earth Day, the 22nd. And that seems like a good way to go meet people and get involved if you know, and a good way for young people or anybody to get and connect and do some networking, get their feet wet, get their foot in the door rather. And again, sorry if this is repetitive to people, but just in case you don't know, if you want to get involved with Extinction Rebellion sooner than Earth Day, you can go on their website and register for an event. They have multiple Zoom and non-Zoom events every week. And this, you guys probably already know about this because this event was actually already on their calendar. So there might even be Extinction Rebellion people here already, but I reached out a few weeks ago and signed up for several events on their website and their newsletter, I think, and I got an email back from someone who scheduled a one-on-one meeting to like onboard me into the organization and told me all these cool things about what we could do, and I felt very welcomed. So it's a really cool organization. And they also have local affinity groups, so you can connect directly with people in your specific area of the city. So as I talked about, the Sunrise Movement has been one of the most inspiring youth climate organizations to me. And one of the biggest ways that you can involve with them right now is to attend a phone bank. They seem to mostly be working to elect Jessica Cisneros, a climate champion candidate for Congress in Texas. I just wanted to quickly say, I'm someone personally who felt nervous about this form of advocacy, but it was seeming to phone banking, but it was seeming to be a way that a lot of young people have been engaging, and people of all ages, a really important way, especially in the pandemic. And the Sunrise does a really good job of making me feel comfortable. There's a training on Zoom. You go and they will, some really passionate young people usually will walk you through it, help you get familiar with the phone banking script. And I felt a real sense of solidarity in that setting. After everyone makes their calls, you come back together and discuss, and oh, this is a challenge I had. So that's a really, that was a really good environment for me. So those are on Sundays and Wednesdays through May to elect this very important candidate in Texas. And another way you can get involved with Sunrise is to go to one of Sunrise National's Welcome to Sunrise calls, which happen every Tuesday, 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. on Zoom. And you can get updated on information on what Sunrise is doing all over the country. There's people from all over the country. That's one cool thing about them being on Zoom. And you hear inspiring stories about why the youth there got involved in climate action. And you can just also ask any questions that you might have about how to get involved, and they'll tell you specific things you can do to get involved. So just to say again, Sunrise has historically been a youth organization, but everyone can go to those Sunrise, Welcome to Sunrise calls, and then listen and hear the stories, and then in the end can ask about the best way to get involved, even if you don't identify as a young person, even if you don't fall into that category. Yeah. So one final thing, our lovely mother who is here has created a very exciting Google Calendar so that climate activists and other adjacent events that can see upcoming local events listed all in one place, conveniently, one-stop shop. And if you're interested in having access to this very exciting resource, you can email us. We'll give you our contact information, and it can be more accessible in other ways as well soon. But start by emailing us, and we can send you the link to that. And here is our contact info. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I am always looking to connect with other young people who, I'm just moving to the area. I'm excited to build a community of young people who want to do climate work together. And so here's our contact info. And if you know anyone who is looking for other young people to band together with as we all figure it out together, please send along our info to them, and please contact us yourselves, whoever you are, with any questions that you had. But yeah, feel free to pass along our info to anyone else. We're always looking to connect with people who are in this fight. So, and yeah, thanks so much. I think that's all we have.
Wow. We're running out of time, but you have been wonderful, and you've answered the question that we always ask about how you got involved with climate activism and what keeps you going better than anyone could have possibly answered that question. What we're going to do now is we're going to play our video while people put in some questions for you, and also some feedback on our unit today and overall, and some suggestions for the future. And then after that, we'll open up so people can ask questions, but also share information if they want to do it then. So here we go, our love song to the earth, the music video.
This is an open letter from you and me together. Tomorrow's in our hands now.
Find the words that matter, say them out loud. I'll make it better somehow.
Looking down from up on the moon is a tiny blue marble. Who'd have thought the ground we stand on
Could be so fragile.
This is an love song to the earth.
You're no ordinary world. It's our world, 'cause it's our world.
Please keep it safe.
It's our world. It's our world. It's our world. 'Cause it's our world.
I cut out carbs, sugar. Not sustainable. Boom, I get.
You're muted, Phil.
I love that you're asking us the questions. That was a good turnabout. You have a lot of encouragement in the chat, folks, for keeping up your positive energy. Here's a question. Whoops. No, that's another statement. A lot of statements, a lot of positive statements. Oh boy, I guess the question is, do you have any practice at running a Zoom meeting?
I work with plants. I don't know how to work computers.
Anyway, thank you so much. It's the end of our 6th unit.
Did Smith? Sorry, I just saw a question. I realized I meant to say that in my presentation. I totally forgot. Smith did agree to divest the year after I graduated. I missed the celebration by 1 year.
No, but that means all your work paid off.
So, yeah, that was very, very exciting. No, it doesn't matter that I missed the celebration. I was celebrating, but yeah, they did. So that was very rewarding.
He's
sorry.
a source of a lot of good questions. John is. He's our secret questioner.
Yeah, they did. And you know what? This is a good reminder for me to check in with them about. Now the process has been for them to figure out how to transform the divest organization and how to, because of course there's so much work to be done. I still have some friends who are involved with that, and their work now is to just hold the college accountable to do what they say they're going to do, and continue to keep that pressure. The work is not done, but they did officially agree to divest from fossil fuels. So that was after I joined. It might have been like an 8 or so year campaign, because I might have started there about halfway into the fight. So yeah, that was very exciting. Thanks for asking that. I really meant to include that.
Well, we have Valerie's calendar, so we know that there's a lot of things are coming up. And based on your responses, we'll probably be part of some of those future programs. There's a lot to learn, a lot to share, and there's lots of good news to go along with the already evident bad implications of bad impacts of climate change. So anyway, have a wonderful spring, and thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Phil and Dave.
I'd like to thank the organizers of this